of science communication is that it's uh, it's it's something that can be learned through practice, and as you practice more and more you get better at it, and then you start enjoying it. So it's a process, and what essentially I will try to do today is unpack the concepts of science communication for you. And I will first start by sharing what science communication is all about. Why do scientists and researchers, especially young researchers, need to communicate? What do they gain out of science communication? What are some of the tools that can come handy when you're trying to write about your science, when you're trying to speak about your science? And then we can dive into the social media channels that you could be using. So, Sarah, can I have the first line? The next one. So, at the very start, we ask a very fundamental question, which is why do we need to communicate? Now, just I would ask you, next slide. I would ask you to just park science communication for a moment and just concentrate on the word communication. Next slide, please, Sarah. Yeah. So, why do we communicate? Why do living beings communicate? One is to stimulate meaning in minds of people that we engage with, to share information, to share ideas, to share feeling, how you're feeling about today. What we did right now, just a few moments ago, was to share how we were feeling, to develop ideas, to cultivate, to generate ideas, to get into discussions with each other, so you can help or enable each other to think, to reach a common understanding, and to make a decision or to come to a decision by having the information that's required to get to the decision making point. And also, as individuals, to maintain relationship, you need communication. So you can see that communication is the thread of our being, and you cannot just get away from communication, even if you may want to, because even if you're not speaking words, if you're not making a sound, but you are communicating through your body language, through the way you look at each other. So communication is a part of your being. Next slide, please, Sarah. Now, when it comes to communication, there are some fundamental rules, and I have just put together a couple of which I think are the most important when that need to be kept in mind when one is communicating. Communication is not about you; it's always about them, your audience. So whenever you're communicating with anybody, you do a audience analysis. For example, in a family, how I talk to my mother would be very different from probably how I talk to my father or how I talk to my children. So it's about the audience. You will customize your information, you will customize your sentences, you will customize your language, you will modulate your voice when you speak to different kinds of audience. And this is one of the most fundamental things that communication does or applies to communication. And this is also one of the most fundamental things that applies to science communication. Because when you are communicating about your science, you will first analyze who are you communicating to. If it's your peers, you will talk to them in a language, you will write for them in a language that you understand, they understand, the language of the researchers through research publications. But let's say you're talking to your family about your work. You will not use the language that you use in your manuscripts. You will use a very different language to explain them why are you working on this, how are you working on this, and what are you expecting out of it. Then, if you're talking to funders, you will take a different direction and you will talk about what you are adding to the knowledge pool by doing this work. So, as the audience changes, the way of your communication will also change. And this applies very much to science communication as well. Next slide, please, Farah. Yeah. To be successful, regardless of the field and career path, you must learn how to communicate effectively. How many of you agree with this statement that I have put on the screen? Do you think communication is a very important skill in career development? You can just type it out or raise your hand. Yes. Although we are in a virtual environment, although we are doing this over Zoom, I would like you to use the tools that Zoom provides us to interact with me. You can ask me to stop anytime you want, whenever you're not able to follow anything, whenever you have a question for me, and I'll be happy to engage in that interaction. So let's make this a two-way communication and let's interact as we go through the slide. Yes, next slide, please, Sarah. And the last point here that I'm making, wow, I can see a lot of emojis also now. Great. When scientists communicate effectively, science thrives. So, the second most important point that we like to reiterate when we are talking about science communication is for science to thrive, for good science to thrive, there needs to be more and more communication about science, about not just what you're finding in your labs, not just what you're working on, but also about the process of science, what science is, why do we do science, and what is the whole benefit of doing science, and what is the joy of doing science. So these are the things, these are the kinds of communication that help science as an enterprise to grow. It helps the young researchers to be more passionate about science, to be inspired about take up roles in science. So in a way, science thrives on science communication, and it's a two-way process. Sarah, next slide, please. Yeah. So that was all about communication and how it's related to science communication. Now, if I want to explain you about what science communication really is, I have put the definition for you, which we will see in a couple of slides later. But if you just look at the two words here, science and communication. So these are two very different words. Science is something which probably I can define as application of knowledge to understand the nature, the social being, or the social world by using a very, very systematic methodology that is completely based on research and then generating evidence. And there has to be expertise to do science, and institutions are involved in science. So, if you look at science, what stands out as words for you here is a very rigorous methodology, evidence, and facts. Now, when you come to the second half of the slide, that is communication, you can see that communication is also based on evidence, is also based on facts, but there are other components that get added to communication, which are values, which are how you interpret the evidence or the fact that you are getting this information. And then are there any filters to it? What kind of emotions are attached to the information that that is being shared with you? Feelings and emotions take the central stage when it comes to communication. And the science communication as a practice, as an art, is actually a marriage of science and communication where you have to balance both the evidence and facts with the emotions that your communication arouses. So, this is a beautiful piece of analogy or a beautiful explanation that I'm sharing with you, and it was shared with us by Professor Marina Yobert. who is a very seasoned science communication practitioner. Next slide, please, Sarah. Yeah, so here, when I said that science arouses emotion, science communication arouses emotion. So there's a vowel analogy that we follow when we are trying to define science communication. The first is that you are trying to create awareness through science communication. For example, you're trying to create familiarity with new aspects of science. If I was to give you a specific example about it, let's take the example of the pandemic, the COVID-19 vaccines. There was a lot of information which was being sent out about the vaccines, how safe they are, why they should be taken, how do they work, how we got those vaccines, and all of that was to create awareness amongst the public so that they can take the vaccinations or they can decide whether they want to take the vaccine or they do not want to take the vaccine. Second is science communication also is done for enjoyment. It may not be as evident uh, here because it is practiced in not many countries where science communication is used for enjoyment, but slowly most of the countries are getting there. Many practitioners do it just to arouse enjoyment in their audiences. For example, science is used for entertainment. There is science stand-up comedy now. Science is used as art. Sci art is usually popular in many countries. I, in fact, had one slide just after this. Sarah, if we can go to that slide. Yeah. So this is the hugely popular project, a science communication project of the Imperial College of London, where you can see the beauty of the photograph, the mission to the sun, which were shared with the public. And it almost became a science art project because of the quality of the photos, the beauty of the photos that were shared with the public, and that was appreciated by the public. We can go back to the slide. No, the previous slide, where I was looking at the definition. Yes. So the next function of science communication is to arouse interest. Here, I would take the example of ISRO, that is the Indian Space Research Organization. Whenever there is an activity that ISRO plans and telecasts or invites the public to watch it, it almost becomes like a cricket match for Indians, where we are sitting and watching what ISRO is doing. So that kind of voluntary interest can also be generated in science through science communication. Then we come to forming opinions. So through science communication, what we are essentially trying to do is we are providing information to the public, we are creating awareness in the public, and we are laying down the facts for them. This is what it is. This is here where we are. These are some of the gray areas in this research. This is not known. This much is known. So you are giving them all the impossible information in a package in an understandable way so that they can form an opinion. So you are in a way, let's say you are empowering them with all the information that they need to form an opinion, and then that opinion can be used in decision making. So it plays a very important role in decision making about certain aspects. And then lastly, understanding what the process of science is, its content, its social impact. So all that is also taken care by science communication. Sarah, next slide. Next one. Yeah. So again, this is almost related to what we just shared. Why communicate science as researchers? Why do you need to communicate science? One is to understand yourself. What is the value of science to the public? And also to increase awareness about its value to the society, to promote critical thinking, to fight misinformation and disinformation. here is a very important role that the researchers and scientists across the world can have to play, because in the world where we are connected with so much of information, so many platforms where information is shared, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation floating around, because it's very difficult to filter out these kind of information. So in order to fight that narrative, or to match that narrative, there has to be a collective voice of the researchers, of the scientists, who can talk about facts, who can say, yes, this is correct, no, this is wrong, this is unknown, we are getting there, we are reaching there. So you have a very important role to play there. Then to build trust and support for science, again, once that science communication happens collectively, there is more trust for science, because you are providing the information out in the open for the public and empowering them to form an opinion and take decisions. So in a way, they are trusting you for that information. So you are building trust in science. To develop evidence-based policies, again, you're talking to government, you're telling them this is what we can do to fight this pandemic, this is what we can do to fight this global health scenario or environmental challenge situation. So you are providing evidence to policymakers to come up with policies that can help curb global health challenges or mitigate global health challenges. So there's an important role that science communication plays. To receive new perspective on research. So new perspective on research here is where the two-way science communication between researchers and the public becomes important, because as scientists, we are trained in a certain way, as researchers, we are trained in a certain way, and we are in our echo chambers where we communicate with our peers. So let's say I'm a science communicator and I'm only communicating with people who are working on science communication. So my perspective is quite, unidirectional, because I'm just communicating with one kind of people where I do not have the diversity of ideas. So that is where it becomes important for us as researchers to communicate with different kinds of audiences, because every time you interact with different kind of audiences, you gain a new perspective about your research. Let's say you are communicating with school children. The fundamental questions that school children ask may inform your research to ask a very fundamental question. The fundamental questions that journalists ask may inform your research to look at the utility of your work. So these are the kind of perspectives that you can build from interacting with different kinds of audiences. And of course, science communication helps to inspire the next generation of scientists and to thrive the enterprise of science communication. Next slide, please, Sarah. So in all of this, we spoke about what science communication can do. Yes, but what can it do for an individual researcher? It can help you build your own research profile. And during the session, when I take you through all the slides, you will understand how step by step you can build a very strong research profile by building your presence as a communicator of what you do. Then more and more you communicate about your science, it's a very natural progressive process where once you start communicating about your science, more people come to know about your science, what you're trying to do, and in turn they communicate with you. So that builds a network of sorts, and it's a very good networking exercise. From networking, then you go to the stage of how you can get together, combine ideas, and work on collaborative ideas. So it helps in forging research collaborations. From research collaborations, then you go to the next step of finding grants. So once you have established yourself as this is where I work, this is the team I have built, and this is the collaborations that are in place, it becomes very, I think it's one of the strong points when you're applying for any funding programs, And because you have already done this homework of setting up your network, working on ideas, collaborating with people who can then collaborate with you for bigger grants and funding opportunities. And in turn, lastly, I would say there's a lot of enjoyment once you start doing science communication or communicating about your science. And there is a lot of enjoyment that one can have from communicating with different audiences and learning these newer perspectives about your own research and your own science. Sarah, next slide, please. Yes, so I have been going on and on about science communication, why it should be done, and what benefits you can reap out of science communication. So in this phase, what we will try to do is I will talk to you about these models of science communication that we have. So like any communication, science communication is also categorized under three major models. One is the deficit model, then which is like a one-way communication. You are just writing something and sending it out. So it's a one-way communication. Only you were involved, and there's a reader who is reading you, but the reader is not sending you their feedback. So it's a one way of communication, just one arrow. There is the dialogue model where you're having a conversation where two people are involved, and there are two groups. One is the communicator, one is the audience, and they can both talk to each other. So that's the dialogue model. And the third is the engagement model, where there is continuous engagement, where it's almost like a circular model, where the communication goes from one end to the other and comes back and then again goes, and there are different channels of communication that are in place. Sarah, can we go into the details of the models? Yeah. So this is the deficit model where I told you that the um, um, where it's a one-way communication. For example, press releases that you're sending out to journalists, there is no loop back. Web videos, exhibitions, podcasts, and blogs, where there is no methodology of a loop back of you getting to know what they are understanding. And it's based, this deficit model is based on the central idea that you are disseminating information, you are creating awareness, and you have nothing to learn back in return, or you have nothing to get back in return. The next model, please, Sarah. The dialogue model is about listening as much as you're trying to share. So here you are getting into informal discussions with the public, informal discussions with the public. For example, nowadays we at institutions, at research institutions, we generally invite school children, the general public, to come and visit us. And there is a lot of informal dialogue that goes on where we talk about what we are doing in the research institutions, and they ask questions. They can ask anything that they want. Then again, we answer, and then there is this curiosity driven discussion that happens. So it's a very informal, open discussion. So that's the dialogue model, where we are not thinking that the people who are coming into the institutions do not know, and we need to educate them, but rather it's a discussion that's taking place where both the people we are talking to get information from us, and in return, we also get information from them. So that's the dialogue model. Next slide, please, Sarah. Sarah, can I have the next slide? Yes. So the third model is the engagement model, where you're not just having a dialogue with the public, or you're not just having a dialogue with your audience, but actually you are in a way collaborating with them. You have them as a collaborator in your research project or anything that you're doing, and they are contributing actively to your research. So that is where the engagement model comes into place. I'm sure many of you work in the field of public health, and in public health, one of the models that is quite followed is having these discussion groups where you talk to the community, you constantly engage with the community to get their perspective on how would you design a particular intervention. So that would be an engagement model where you are inviting them to participate in your research and you are taking their inputs in your research. So in a way, they are collaborating with you on a project. So that kind of communication is a engagement model. A participatory action research model is an engagement model. Citizen science, where we are asking citizens to come up with data, for example, to do the study of the different kinds of butterflies that are found in a region, to catalog all the butterflies. Let's say I'm talking to you from Delhi, South Delhi, and I want to run a citizen science project where we are cataloging the different types of birds that are found in South Delhi region. So that would be an engaging model where I am the researcher uh, trying to run this project and I am collaborating with the citizens because I am my research will depend upon the data that they share with me. So that's the engagement model. It's in a way a summary of what communication should be. It should be the complete information where you provide the context, uh, concise, not hard to understand, not long, where you're going on and on without making the actual point. You should consider what language should be used, what should be your delivery model, what platform you should use, what styles, will you use any visuals, will you use only text, and then it should be it should respect the audience's beliefs and their values. I say this because most of the time, when we are talking about science, science can be at conflict with some of the ideas of the society, and we need to keep that in mind. And we should know how to steer clear of these conflicts and how to be respectful to our audience when we are communicating something, because science communication is not about thinking that we are at a pedestal where we know more than our audience. Science communication is about being at the same level where you're trying to communicate what you know and also trying to learn from your audience. Next slide, please, Sarah. Yes, so here we are going to part two, where I will try to share some very practical tools with you, which you can use while you are trying to communicate your science. That can be through written channels like blogs or press releases, social media, or if you're trying to do a pitch or a presentation. So these are a couple of tools that are
Anya,
generally
I have a
followed.
question. Sorry
Yes,
to,
Manju.
so before you start the part two,
Yes.
sometimes, as you said, that there may be societal norms which are very against scientific evidence, or sort of not aligned to scientific evidence, right? So
Yeah.
how do we communicate in that sense? Because I'll just give an example.
Yes.
Um, if a community is burning plastics, right?
Hmm.
But
Yes.
is very sort of um, economically very stable and doing very well because of burning of the plastic, because they are maybe making byproducts which they can sell. It
Yes.
becomes very difficult then to go into the community and say how harmful plastic burning is, because there's not these evidence that we talk about in research also take a lot of years to collect, right? So we
Exactly.
cannot sort of immediately say within the past 3 years how many abortions have occurred, or how many children have not have other disease, or what is the chronic disease burden in that community in the past 5 6 years. And also policymakers do not want to touch that, or the government does not want to touch that, because it's a very successful community, otherwise has a lot of influence in in the society, or in the governance. as well. So how do we take, evidence and go to them and talk about these things?
Yes, Madhuri, that would be a very, very difficult situation if I were to be honest, completely honest with you, because I understand, because the finances are involved, economy is involved. When you are asking them to stop burning plastic, almost you're asking them to stop their livelihood, the means of livelihood. So that is something which is obviously not acceptable to the community, and we get that. So one of the I think the best ways to approach such situation is to move into the community, or communicate. Yeah, first move into the community with a lot of empathy, of and then try to create our own understanding of why they are doing what they are doing. Then get into the phase of communication with them. When you have established, I think, that trust, while engaging with them for a considerable period of time. Because if I go into, just walk into the community with evidence that, look, what you're doing is completely wrong and you need to stop, I don't think any community will accept me, because their livelihood depends on it. So you need to reach a phase where they are comfortable to ask to listen to you and then ask questions, and then probably from there you move into a stage where you and the community both together are trying to find solutions to that very problem. If there is a solution, there's always like a, or if there is not like a solution, you are trying to find a middle path where both the you and the community are coming to a compromise, that this is what we will try to do. So I don't know if I made myself clear, but
No, it
uh,
was very good, actually. I mean, see, you are saying that it's going to take time, and that is
yes,
what the answer is. It's going to
yes,
take time. And for us as researchers, we think about projects which are just 5 years, right? And we want
absolutely,
data in 5 years. We want to sort of have impact in 5 years. And maybe 5 years is a less time to think about moving into the community and really bringing about the changes. But I think as researchers also, and I think this is good because you've raised an important point that as researchers, we have to be at least married to the goal as much as possible. If my goal in life as a researcher is to reduce the burden of chronic disease through air pollution, then, it is not limited to just one project which is 5 years. It is a lifelong sort of journey, right? And
absolutely,
there are
absolutely.
success stories like that. I think even Professor Jha moving his team into Uddanam for the renal kidney disease, and that's the focus of his sort of
Yes,
research and his life, right? To elevate the issues of renal disease. So I think that is also very important for a researcher. Only then I think from inside you will be able to work with a community for a long term thing, because it's not a very short term goal just to go and try to bring in behavioral changes in communities.
absolutely. I think the central point here would be to first focus on building that relationship where with the community, where you trust them and they trust you. Only then you can start looking at solutions or exchanging information. So it would be very important to build that ease of communication, that relationship, that trust, and build that community first, and then go into the second step and the third step gradually about finding solutions together, again together.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah, so moving on to the second part, Sarah, can we move the slides? Yes, so the first tool which I thought I will share with you is the inverted pyramid. It's like the one of the most used tools and the oldest one of them, because it has been used in by science communicators from the 1800s. I'll give you an example. So what we do in the inverted pyramid is, so all of you write like your thesis, all of you write your research papers, and in scientific writing, where you see the upright pyramid. First, you set the context or give the background. Let's just imagine the abstract. First, in a few lines, you set the context. You give the audience the background knowledge that you have. Then you identify that this is the gap in the knowledge that we have. Then you come to the methods. Because we have this gap, that is why we did this, and this. This was our method. And when we did this is our finding. We found out this, and therefore this is our conclusion. So it's uh, if you see, it's background first, then where is the gap in knowledge, what you did to fill that gap in knowledge, what did you find, and what was your conclusion. So that's the anatomy of a research paper or scientific writing. But in when you're writing about when you're writing for a non-expert audience, I say non-expert audience. By non-expert audience, I mean those not involved in your research. They can be involved in some other research. They also become non-expert audience if your areas or domains of research vary. And then the general public, school children, your parents, everybody becomes the non-expert audience. That's how we define the non-expert audience. So if you're writing for the non-expert audience, you will do just the opposite. So first, you will get your audience interested in your work, in what you're trying to say, by stating the conclusion first, or the impact statement. So this is what we found out. Then you will come to how we found out, and then you will come to the context that this was the background, but this was what was missing. So our study helps bridge this gap. So it's just the opposite of what you do in scientific writing. Sarah, next slide, please. Yes. So here is a very, very old press article about Edison's electric light, which was published in the New York Times in 1879. And you can see the language can be is archaic. I have to tell you that. But you'll see that it follows the inverted pyramid. So in the first few lines, uh, the writer gives you the impact statement or the answer to so what. There was no lack of enthusiasm or of confidence about Mr. Edison as he greeted the Times reporter who entered his laboratory at Melno Park yesterday. The inventor, a short, thick-set man with grimy hands, led the way through his workshop and willingly explained the distinctive features of what he and many others look upon as an apparatus which will soon cause gaslight to be a thing of the past. In the first three sentences, the writer has answered who, what, when, where, why, how, everything. And you now know what they are talking about, who they are talking about, and why they are talking about this man, because he is a man who will soon cause gaslight to be a thing of the past. Then, as you go through the paragraph, you will learn how this was done, and then the context comes at the end. So this is what inverted pyramid structure looks like. So you can take as an exercise, what you can do today is you can go and look at the science articles that are published in newspapers. So you will see that most of the articles in newspapers about science primarily follow the inverted pyramid structure, where in the first headline and in the next two lines that follow the headline, the leading lines, they try to sum up everything that they want to tell about why you are going to read this article, why you should be reading this article, what impact this work is going to make. So that is how you hook your audience and you get them to read your article. So this is one of the major tools that most of the science writers use, and it's a very basic tool which has been in place for many, many years now. Next slide, Sarah. Okay, the second tool that is very important while you're writing for the non-expert audience is your language. Now, I have put some examples together for you. One I'll read out for you. Overcoming power efficiency trade off in a micro heat engine by engineered system bath interactions. So, this is the research title. If you come to the title that was used by the newspaper, microscopic engine efficiently converts heat into motion. Although many of us are not from physics or thermodynamics or engineering, we will understand what they are trying to say. Microscopic engine efficiently converts heat into motion. Optics drive the repeated convergent evolution of butterfly wing pattern mimicry. This was the research article a title, and the newspaper wrote how great wings can look alike. So if you look at this, the language has drastically changed, but what they are trying to say is essentially the same. So one of the things that is the cornerstone of science communication is to use language which is inclusive. I will not say that we can avoid jargon totally. Jargon may not be jargon for everyone because it depends upon the audience. What may be jargon for me may not be jargon for somebody else who understands that subject. So, when you're writing for a certain audience, you need to be mindful that the language has to be inclusive. By inclusive, I mean that the language should not work as a gatekeeper. For example, anybody who's reading you must be able to understand, or you must at least make the effort to make people understand what you're trying to say. There's no need of using jargon, or there's no need of using difficult language, where you can say it in more simpler terms in plain language. So that is, I think, the mark of a good science communicator, a good writer, where your language is inclusive and understandable, and it doesn't work as a gatekeeper, where you are trying to segregate, okay, this these this kind of audience will only be able to understand what I am trying to say because they have a greater command on the English language or a greater command on vocabulary. So you're trying to minimize. So I'll just give you a couple of points here, what you can try to do when you're writing about your science. First, wherever you can avoid jargon or technical terms and use simpler terms for them, you should use them. Wherever you are not able to avoid jargon or technical terms, you introduce them and explain them right away to your audience that this is what this means. I'm sure all of us can explain the technical terms that we deal with in our research in day to day life. The third is that you use efficient writing where you are not writing long sentences, you're writing short, easily understandable sentences. Fourth is that you are not using much of jargon. You are doing shorter sentences. What you're also trying to do is use day-to-day life analogy or metaphors to explain what you mean when you are talking about a process or you're talking about something. If I have to give an example, um, like using a very common process in day-to-day life to explain the science behind something. Analogies and metaphor work very well in a scenario where you are trying to talk to non-expert audiences. So these are some of the way where you can make your writing inclusive. And now also there are tools, writing tools, even Grammarly, where they tell you that if there is more, if your sentences are very wordy, if there is jargon involved, and how inclusive your language is, how inclusive your writing is. So you can make use of all these tools when you're writing for your audience. Next slide, please, Sarah. Okay, so the third tool is one in a very interesting tool, very easy to use, and we'll be using this in a couple of minutes. So it's one of my favorite also because it's so simple to use. It's called the ABT framework. So the ABT framework is about it I think it depends it the foundation of the ABT framework is storytelling, basically how we tell a story. So it was developed in 2012, fairly recent, by scientist turned filmmaker Randy Olson. He's a very, very famous um, uh, science communicator. I will send you the link to his book, which you can try to read. It's the idea of shrinking the whole idea, the whole narrative that you have into a single sentence by using three connector words: A, B, T, and, but, and therefore. So the first and, the connector word, you use for agreement, that is joining of ideas. Then you come to but, where there is contradiction. Then you come to consequence, where there is solution. So uh, for example, let's take the example of a movie. In a movie, let's take the example of a Bollywood movie. So there is this uh, phase that a Bollywood storyline goes through, where first there is agreement. Okay, so they are showing a lot of things, they are showing all the information. Suddenly there is a conflict or a contradiction. So there's a hero and the villain, and there is contradiction. Okay, and then there is a fight, and there is a consequence. So this is the format of a Bollywood movie story, and this is the format that storytelling in science also follows, where you build the context by using and then you take it to a contradiction point or a conflict point where you say, but this, and then you bring the solution in, or you by saying, therefore, we are doing this. Sarah, can you get to the next slide? Yeah, so this. And this, the plot diagram actually shows the Bollywood example that I gave you, where in the beginning there is a lot of information that you have, and then there is in the middle there is this uh, but that comes in, where there is rising action, there is conflict, there is contradiction, then there's a climax to that contradiction, and then there is a resolution where you bring in the therefore. So your information has to be packaged in such a way that it follows the storyline, almost like a Bollywood movie story would. So yes. And if you can look at the narrative spectrum that I've put on the screen for you, if so it tells you why the ABT formula works. Because if you're going on using and to provide a lot of information to your audience, they will certainly get bored. So this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened. I went to the market, I got some vegetables, I came home, I sat down, I saw some TV, then I went to bed. So there's no conflict, there's no contradiction. Why would you be interested in my narrative here, right? Then then comes the DHY, despite, however, yet, which is overly confusing. There's a lot of conflict here. Okay, I went to the market, but then I could not find any vegetables. But then I went to another market where I did find some vegetables. But then what happened is I dropped the vegetables. Then I got home, and then I had nothing to cook. So there's a lot of overload of contradictions and conflicts, so which again is boring and confusing to your audience. And then there is the ABT narrative, which is a fairly very simple formula of storytelling. And this is also, in a way, a very genius formula of storytelling, because this is what we have been listening to all our life. Right from childhood, when we listen to stories, this is basically the central formula which most of the stories that we listen to, or most of the films that we watch, follow, where there is information, then there is a conflict, then there is the resolution. So it's a natural way of processing information that our brain has been trained for. Sarah, next slide. Yeah. So now I would like some of you to come forward and really try and pitch the problems or the research that you're working on by using the ABT tool that we just discussed. One of the examples I put on the screen for you. I just told you the story of how Randy Olson developed this tool, and this is the story of how he told. Professor Randy Olson watched a documentary about the creators of South Park. South Park is a very famous series. And in it, they shared their simple method of writing scripts. But Olson saw that this simple formula could have an effect much more than Hollywood scripts. Therefore, he wrote a book to share the science of storytelling, the narrative gym, introducing ABT framework. So this is how the whole information of how Randy Olson came to develop the ABT framework for science communication is packaged into just 1, 2, 3, and 4 sentences. That's it. So somebody who can come up and try this? Anybody from the audience? I can give you one example. Let's say I want to talk about my research, which I did when I was doing my PhD. So I worked on developing a fish vaccine. So if I have to use the ABT formula to communicate it to you, how would I do it? I can say that a lot of freshwater fish are um, prone to parasites, and the parasites greatly decrease productivity of aquaculture, but there is no environmentally viable solution to stop these parasites. Therefore, I focused on developing a vaccine against these parasites. Please.
Yeah, I want to try. I'm thinking aloud. Just to
Sure,
kickstart
sure.
everyone's. So this is related to the NHR work which you're doing.
Mhm.
And we do a lot of research capacity strengthening. And thanks to you and Sarah, this is one of the research capacity strengthening activity. So in this context, let me just try to pitch in the importance of RCS. So research capacity strengthening is an important element for sustainability of synthesizing evidence,
Mhm.
uh, but um, but um, I'm thinking about the conflict. Um, but local capacities for mentorship are limited. Therefore, we plan for um, supporting this uh, supporting research capacity strengthening. Um, sorry, I need help here. Madhuri, you
I
want to
think
add?
that's an excellent try. Probably the conflict is great that the local resources are limited, and therefore we are looking at these online solutions where you are bringing in experts from different regions to talk to the cohort and help them build the capacity.
Yes, thank you. So maybe I can add that therefore we we request for volunteers to you know volunteer to spend some of their time in building capacities of eager researchers.
Yes,
This is a pitch in for
wonderful,
research senior researchers to give
wonderful.
more time to the junior
Very good.
researchers.
Thank you, Nivedita. Anyone else? I would really want some of you to please try this. As I told you, the workshops will only work when we practice, and we have to practice together.
Again, taking back the example of NIHR project, the
Mhm.
NIHR GHRC project has an ambitious goal of working on the nexus of environmental health, environment change and health. But the increasing impact of climate change is sort of laying back is sort of impacting the progress of
Yes.
bringing in positive impacts on health, as the environment is not very conducive. Therefore, we are working on a collaborative, concerted approach, um, and also pitching in with the policymakers to bring in appropriate measures to bring in the change.
Great try, Suruchi. Thanks much. Anyone else? Last try for somebody?
So, in an institutional work presentation, I heard a lot of great research talks by TGI researchers, but none of them discussed challenges that they had faced while doing the research, and also the solutions they had arrived at, and learnings they had had to go forward. And these could be good cross learning for the other teams. Therefore, I
Mhm.
designed a project on tacit knowledge in TGI.
Amazing. Yes.
I
So
mean,
yeah, as you saw, absolutely different contexts, very different scenarios. We tried to explain my research using the same formula. Madhuri tried to explain her intervention using this formula. Uh, Nivedita and Suruchi were talking about the program using the same ABT framework. So it's a very simple framework which will get better, of course, with practice. So it's just and, but, therefore, where you bring in two important pieces of information by using and first, which is the context setting. Then you bring but, which is your conflict or contradiction point, and therefore you are doing this where you bring in the solution. So this is what it is. Very, very simple. And I would like all of you to please try this whenever you're writing on social media, whenever you are pitching about your work to somebody, whenever you're discussing your work with somebody. So this is how you should introduce your work to somebody, where in just and, but, and therefore, you are giving them the full flavor of what you're trying to do. And then once they are interested in your idea, then you are moving into the greater details of what your work is about. Yes, Nivedita.
Thanks. So, the PhDs who are enrolled in this program are people who are doing a piece of work as a sub projects to achieve a degree or a short-term or for any short-term training, are asked to give an elevator pitch of their topic in one slide. So I think this is something which the senior researchers wanted to hear from the PhDs who are enrolled here. I think this is no excuse after seeing this slide that we should be able to communicate. So thank you so much. I think this will really help me in looking at their presentation. So I just wanted to voice my thanks
Thank
for
you so
this.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so this is a great piece to be for elevator pitches, and in fact, I did work with one of the cohorts where they were supposed to make an elevator pitch. We had a workshop in the morning, and in the evening they wanted to make all of them wanted had to make elevator pitches at the embassy. One of the embassies here in India. So and I got a feedback that they use the ABT framework and it worked beautifully for most of them because it was so easy to navigate complex ideas and communicate them to non-expert audience by using this framework. So you should definitely give it a try. Sarah, next slide. Also, I can I can see the chat box. So if you want to put anything in the chat box, you don't want to speak up but want to put anything in the chat box, that's absolutely fine. I can read that out and I can answer that on the chat box also. So just feel free to communicate through the chat box. So lastly, I would like to say that any communication, any science communication that you are doing, you should also look at it as like a project, as your research project. For let's draw parallels here. Whenever you have a research project, you first hypothesize something, then you work on the methodology, then you finalize the methodology. Okay, these are my objectives or goals. This is what I want to study, and these are the methods that I can use for my study. And then you do that, and then you find the results. And when you look at the results, you analyze your results. And once you have analyzed your results, if they are good, you go ahead. If they are not good, not satisfactory, you go back to your methodology, you change your methodology, and then you work back again. So a science communication project is absolutely the same methodology. First, it's your purpose. Why are you communicating with anybody? That's your problem statement, the hypothesis. If I have to draw parallels with your research project to make it more understandable. So first you need to understand what is the purpose of my communication when I am communicating. Uh, Whether it is to get more funding from funders, whether it is to create a network to find collaborators for my work, whether it is to just drive curiosity in young people. So you have to find the purpose of why you are trying to communicate or about your research, whether it is to um, uh, build your profile as a researcher. So you first have to identify why you are trying to do what you're trying to do. Second, next slide, please, Sarah. So once the purpose is clear, then it is the audience who comes in. And when the audience come in, you have to analyze. So based on your purpose, you will identify your audience. So let's say if you are looking for building the network, then you are trying to look at researchers who are working in areas related to yours, or interdisciplinary areas that you want to explore for your collaboration. So that would be your audience. If you're wanting to create more awareness about what you are working on, then probably you are targeting media, journalist as your audience group. If you are trying to, as Madhuri, let's take Madhuri's example, if you're trying to go into a community and try to find, stop them from burning plastic, try to find solution with them, then that community becomes your engagement group, that community becomes your audience. So based on your audience, then you will finalize your methodology. For example, if I am a person who is working on adolescent health and I want to engage with adolescents, I would prefer to use Instagram because as a mode of communication, as a mode of like sending out information, because that's the platform that is used by adolescents as shown by research. If I am trying to communicate with the broader scientific community, I would like to use, if I have to take the name of a social platform, I will try to use Twitter, because Twitter is used largely by the scientific community to talk about their science. Or if I am looking for networking, I will try to use LinkedIn. So based on the communication, based on the audience, you will choose a communication tool that is best suited to your audience. If you're trying to talk to journalists, you will create press releases, you will have press meetings at your institution, and also you will engage with journalists. You will draw up a list of journalists who specifically write about your area of research, then you will start interacting with them by sending them emails, by following them on Twitter, by following them on LinkedIn. So these are different kind of communication strategies that you will follow based on the audience. Next slide, please, Sarah. And then, yes, so this is the method and technique that I have already told you. Next slide, please, Sarah. Yes, also you will consider partnerships, collaborations, because it's a methodology, right? If you don't have, let's say, if you don't have the expertise to talk to journalists, so what as a researcher you will do is you will seek the help of your institution's media office and ask them for help to train you to talk to these journalists. So you look for partners and collaborations. Next slide, please, Sarah. And then, as I said, if your methodology isn't working, you will evaluate your methodology and you will try to course correct yourself. I wanted to talk to adolescents, but I used Facebook and then no one responded to me. So I will look at my methodology and then my analysis will tell me, okay, Facebook may not be the most popular social media platform that is used by adolescents in the country. Maybe you should try and go to Instagram and send out messages on Instagram. That's how they will get your information. So I will do that course correction, and in my communication strategy, I will move from Facebook to Instagram. So this is one of the examples that you can I could think of. So to tell you about how evaluation actually works in communication. Next slide, please, Sarah. Okay, so basically we have looked at most of the tools that I had to share with you. One was that the inverted pyramid. Second was the language. You have to be very careful about not using jargon. Third was the ABT framework. Then you have to look at it as a project where you are trying to build a methodology for your communication, and then course correcting based on the evaluation. So I have tried to summarize your most of the important points that you have to keep in mind while communicating about your research in science. The first, I have already made it clear, know your audience and customize your information for them. Then when you are talking to non-expert public or non-expert audience, they are not interested in, oh, this graph, here the values don't add up, or they are not interested in the details of your data. They are interested in the bigger picture, the context, what your research is going to do. Why are you doing this? So you have to build that bigger picture for them. Where in the whole web of knowledge does your research, your science make an addition? So that scope of your work should be very, very evident in your communication. Avoid jargon. Remember, try to use metaphors, support statements with data, and convert the data into visual aids for your audience. And as I had told you, we had discussed earlier also, inclusion, diversity, equity. You have to understand your audience, what kind of languages a language is inclusive for them, how to be respectful about their values, their beliefs, not to outright cancel their ideas or cancel their beliefs, but to try to build that relationship with them and understand where they come from. Okay, so we will move into the final section now. Yes. So when we were having this conversation about having this workshop or having this session for you, Sarah had informed me that most of you are very young researchers and you would like to build a research profile. And we thought that we could focus a section of the workshop can be on altmetrics, how to build a research profile using social media. So I'll start by defining what altmetrics is. Sarah, next slide, please. Yes. So altmetrics is when we go beyond the means of traditional impact assessment. For example, traditionally, for researchers, impact assessment is done through the number of publications and the citation of publications. But altmetrics is slowly coming up also as a method of impact assessment. If you go to the journal sites right now, when you click on a paper, you will be able to see the citations, but you will also be able to see their altmetrics score, which is quite comprehensive, where they tell you how many blogs cited it, how many blogs were based on it, how many times it was posted, the link was posted on Twitter or LinkedIn. So they give you a fairly comprehensive altmetric profile of your piece of work. So it's emerging as a great tool, great impact assessment tool. So what does altmetric do? It analyzes the mentions in social media, in blogs, in news pieces, and mostly on all on digital platforms. So on the for example, on how many times a link was clicked, how many have marked your research paper or bookmarked your research paper as a favorite, how many mentions are there in Wikipedia, how many mentions are there in blogs, how many mentions are there in digital news articles, and how many shares, likes, comments are there on social media. All these together build your altmetric score. And I think here altmetric scores have to be taken with a pinch of salt um, because citations is when your work is actually cited by your research publication. But altmetrics is also applicable when, let's say, for a where something is retracted or some publication has a problem, but people are going quick and watching, clicking on it and looking at what the problem area is. So the altmetric score is going up there. So most of the times what happens is altmetric score and the traditional metrics of citations is taken together, and altmetric score is never used as in totality to for impact assessment. Next slide, please, Sarah. So research organizations use different methods to build these altmetrics. They use the social media networks, a mass web media, their own media channels like their websites, their blogs, and then science media also. So I would not want you to focus on altmetrics much, but to focus on these different media where you can talk about your research. And I've already introduced the tools that you can practice upon to talk about your research and build a credible research profile on all these social media platforms. So essentially what they will do is when you try to communicate more and more on these social media platforms, you will be building a base of followers who again can be your peers, can be your contemporaries, can be interdisciplinary researchers. So you will be building a network. Second, after network, you will be opening up many opportunities for collaboration, for the funding. Third, there will be more visibility for your work. There will be more visibility for you as an individual, as a researcher. So these are some of the perks of building a profile on social media and talking about your work on social media. Again, we should not, I think, forget that also a lot of feedback is given on social media, which might be quite useful. So you need to understand how to filter feedback, what to look at and analyze, and how to build on that feedback. So we will look one by one through the social media networks that you can use. And again, I request you to please ask questions wherever you don't understand anything, wherever you want to engage in a discussion, you don't agree with something. So let's just have a conversation in this next stage. Yeah. So some of the social media networks that I wanted to discuss today with you, one was LinkedIn. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There are much more nowadays. We use Discord channels, and there is Slack. These are again communication tools. But primarily, I wanted to focus on these, which are the most popular methods of communicating about your science on social media. So first, we can look at LinkedIn. So next slide, please. Yeah. So on LinkedIn, what you can, again, LinkedIn is again a social media profile platform where you can first build your platform. And what you need to do for that is make a complete profile of yourself on LinkedIn, where you make a statement about what you do and why you are unique, what you work on, what is the impact of your work. It's a very good platform because it almost follows the rules of a CV, where you are able to provide like a profile summary of what you have been working on, what you are interested in, and where you would like to see you in future. So most of the things that Sarah was sharing about me, about you, is on LinkedIn. So that is how my LinkedIn profile also reads, that I am a biologist turned science communicator. So in one sentence, I talk a little bit about past, where people come to know, yes, she's from the stream of science, but now she does science communication. Then I talk a little bit about what I am doing right now. I build and where I have been working, the companies that I have worked for, the organizations that I have worked for. Then later on, I also introduce what I am particularly interested in, that is the research in science communication, building capacity in science communication. So this is what my profile look like. And essentially, it tells you everything about my professional journey. So you should build complete profiles where you should be able to give you what your interests are, what you're working on, where do you want to see yourself in the future. And then there are places where you can put your experience, you can put your skill sets, you can also mention your education, collaborators. So all of this builds a very sturdy profile that you can have on LinkedIn. And the more complete your profile is, the more credible you look on LinkedIn. And of course, then you have to start posting or start talking and start engaging on the platform. So how do you do that? You have to be more visible. And when I say you have to be more visible on LinkedIn, what you have to do is you have to engage with content. So let's say I am somebody who works on environment, and I would try to follow people from my group of study, or whose work I like, and I would like to interact with the content that they are posting. Maybe like their content, share their content, comment on their content, what they're sharing. When I read a good paper, I would like to interact with that article and say, this is what I liked in the article, this is what I did not understand. I would like to engage further with you and discuss this point with you. So this is how you become more visible as more and more you interact with the content. Network and collaborate. You have to start following, send friend requests, get accepted, all of that. Then tailor your profile according to your interest. Sorry. So again, here it depends upon. Can I just have a minute? Sorry.
Banya, can you see the slide and hear me?
Yes, I can see your slide. I just had a cough, so I had
Oh,
to.
all right. No worries, no worries. Take your time.
Yes. So can we go back to the previous slide, Sarah? I was talking
Sure.
about LinkedIn. Yeah. So as I told you, you have to tailor your profile. Like really tell people what you're interested in, where you would want to see yourself in the future, what your career interests are, how have you progressed in your career. All those options are available on LinkedIn. It's one of the most professional social media sites where you can be to build network and collaborate and talk about your science. And so how you communicate your work on LinkedIn is through lay summaries or plain language summaries. Let's say you publish something, so you create a summary of your work and post it as a post on LinkedIn. You can augment this piece of communication by putting a graphical abstract, where the graphical abstract is a visual representation of what you have worked on. You can also put press releases if you are doing press releases for your research papers, articles, then you can put these on LinkedIn. So one of the tools which is very, very applicable on LinkedIn is the inverted pyramid tool that we discussed. So most of the content that you would find on LinkedIn is of the inverted pyramid tool. I had some links from LinkedIn. Let me just check. Yeah, there is. I'm posting one from George Institute where you can see they're talking about AI, where they are putting the context out. The link, and they are tagging. Yes, so you also need to tag people who are relevant to your work. This is a feature that works across the social media handles and can be used everywhere. So you need to tag people, and by tagging people, they get to see what you're talking about, then they get the opportunity to interact with your content. So this is how LinkedIn works. Yeah, this is a very, it has a picture which draws the audience, and in very, very plain language, it tells you about AI is a tool that could help or harm health equity when it relies on male-centric data sets. It poses potential risks to other groups. So you are right. Uh, in the beginning, they're setting the context here for you, but there is also opportunity to harness the power of AI to bridge the sex and gender gap, as our experts outline in this article. And then there is the link. The link is your call to action, where you are asking your audience to go and read this. And all the content that you see before that is to hook your audience to come and read this. You're providing to them the context about that article, that this is what we are going to talk about in the article. And then you have linked all the right organizations or people who are involved. And then there is also a picture here which uh, a medical professional holding a phone. So it in a way conveys both, like you are talking about health, you're talking about equity and AI tools. So this is how it is used. Like the link is there, the right people who are collaborating, all of them have been tagged. The information is there, the text information is there, and the visual cue is also there. So Twitter again is a very, very elegant tool when you want to communicate your science, and it is used by researchers all across the world to talk about their science. Whenever there is a new publications, most of the researchers who are very good at communicating their science put out a thread on Twitter where they do almost like a story of what they were trying to do, what they found out, and how they found out, and what impact it's going to make. Again, the same tools that you use in inverted pyramid or ABT tool, but here you put it in the format of Twitter. In Twitter, the I think the most important thing is to keep again engaging with the content that's more relevant to you. So that's how you build a following. That's how you build a community on Twitter. And respond to tweets by retweeting, by liking, by sharing, by posting pictures. You can also post very short videos on Twitter, but mostly Twitter is about short statements, to the point, very, very crisp, 1 or 2 lines with a call to action, like a link to read something or a link inviting them to do something. Graphical abstracts work very well on Twitter. And again, I would recommend the ABT tool that we just discussed for all the communication that you put out on Twitter. Next slide, please. I have a couple of examples on Twitter. Again, I'll share those with Sarah, and she can share with everybody. Facebook, let's be honest, it's not really quite popular with research sharing. But let's say for your research you want to build a close community, then on social networks, then Facebook is something that can help you build those close communities and interact with close communities. Again, as LinkedIn, on Facebook you can engage with peers and colleagues, keep in touch, engage with content through likes and through reshares. So again, here the ABT framework works well, or you can post lay summaries, you can post impact statement also. So Facebook works both ways. Longish content can also go on Facebook, and short statements can also go on Facebook. Videos work well on Facebook. So yes, so this again can be used. And next we go to Instagram. Okay, so this is something I had put a couple of examples for you. This is an article which I'll share for you, where they have listed out the top 50 science stars of Twitter. Quite interesting. You should go and visit their Twitter accounts, and you will see how they talk about everyday things, and they talk about also their research, and they are trying to build that whole persona of what they are interested in, what they are doing in their career, what they are currently interested in. They are talking also about the profiles are interspersed by personal experiences, by their hobbies, but also largely they're talking about what exactly they are doing when they're talking about their science. If there is a new paper, they're putting out the links there, they're putting out summaries of their work, they are retweeting work that they are interested in, they are encouraging young researchers by interacting with their science. So all these kinds of interactions you will be able to see. I'll share the link with you. I had put the I'll share Madhupai's link also with you. I found that consistently Dr. Pai shares his passion for global public health through Twitter, interact a lot with all the work. So I'll share these links with you, where you can see how to talk about your science, and also when you are engaging with other relevant scientists about their work, how can you do that? Next slide. Yes, so in a nutshell, you have to craft your key messages. So social media, let's be very, very honest, the attention span of your audience on social media is not very long. So you have to keep your message very crisp, very concise. You have to include always a call to action link of where you are directing your audience. You want to read them your published article, you want to read them the blog that was written about your research by your on your institute's a web page or a website, or you want to direct them to a news article which was based on your work. So there should be always that link that is directing them. Visuals work great on all these platforms. Graphical, you can create graphical abstracts. Canva is one of the tools that you can use. BioRender is another tool that you can use for graphical abstracts. Then you can create 2-minute videos. Sometimes just the researcher talking about their work, the fundamental message of their work works great on platforms like Instagram. So that is something that you can explore. Like you are just sitting in the lab and making like a 1 minute clip where you're trying to explain what you're trying to do, and you can post that on Instagram, and that works very well on Instagram. So these are a couple of things that you can be doing on social media. So the key to all of this of building a profile on social media is to sustaining the effort of constantly engaging with the kind of content you like, and also constantly posting about what you're doing. So the more and more you start doing this, you'll be able to do it with ease, and also you will learn what works best and what doesn't work. So as I had told you when I started this conversation today, that all of this is more of practice. So as you practice, you will get better at communicating about your science. When you write 10 pages long manuscript, you are communicating your science. And when you're writing just 3 sentences to tell your audience about the gist of what you have done, you are communicating your science, and both needs to be done equally well, so that um, the rigorousness of your science is not dumped down by just the words that you are putting out. So that balance, how you will build, is through practice of communicating more and more and talking more about your science. So on social media, it's not just about publications that you should talk about. You should talk about your day-to-day life. It's very important to normalize how researchers work in laboratories. There's success, there's failure. So all of that is your research experience, and all of that will build your research profile. So it's important to talk about all of that and share visual messages. So yes, next. Yeah. So this is a paper that my I just wanted to show uh, how cool the altmetric score of this paper is. Of course, this was published in Science a year ago, and then there was a lot of communication that happened around this article. There were blogs, there were newspapers writing about this. Then the authors did a series of videos that they posted on YouTube. The organizations involved posted about this on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram. So you can see how the altmetrics of the research publication looks like: 4,600, and picked up by 355 news outlets. So once you start investing in science communication, once you uh, if there is a very important piece of research or publication that's coming out from your laboratory, you should collaborate with your institutions, media offices. You should collaborate with the science communicators that you have access to build a science communication plan, and then talk more and more about it, because it can do wonders for the altmetrics of your work, and also it can make your work more and more visible and your profile more and more visible.
That's a very good point. Is it too late to start using science communication? She says that she's tried multiple times but gets a cold feet. Um, Vanya, please help us.
Nivedita, you were great today. So I would say that there's no need to get cold feet, and it's never too late to start anything in life. So you should just move ahead. And as I told, it's all about practice. Many of us have just learned it on the job, and just because we had interest in doing it. Like I did never go for like a professional course in science communication, although there are many courses and resources available now. So I learned on the job. Whatever I do today is through practice. So I think that it's more about interest. It's more about being consistent. It's more about yeah, it's more about being consistent and keeping on practicing. You can really start small. You can just start by communicating with your family, and then going to bigger circles. So that would really help to, if you have like a hesitancy in going out to the social right away. So you can just start with your family. But even if you are a little hesitant in writing anything outright now on the social media, maybe you can start just by being a lizard on the wall on social media, just being there and looking at the content that is being put out on social media, engaging with the content, just liking it, just sharing it, and you will soon be at ease on social media platforms, and you will soon, I think, start communicating yourself. So that's one piece of advice that I had.
Thank you, Banya. I'll try, and I'll let Sarah know. Thank you.
Sure, sure. And I agree with Banya. One of the advice given to me as well was start resharing and liking content first if you're not confident, and
Yes.
slowly you'll get that confidence to sort of start writing on social media. I'm still in the reposting and liking stage, but then being on social media has also let me follow a lot of advancements that are happening in open science and decolonization of science, something which I, as a research manager, can engage much more with. And similarly, if others start liking stuff and being a little active on social media, you'll get to know about your innovations and new trends in your areas of research. So there is an added benefit and merit of just browsing your LinkedIn accounts or even Twitter accounts, maybe I would say once a week, and then build upon it. So I have a question for you, Banya. I want to know, how do you use social media for networking and collaborations?
Over the years, I have been more active on LinkedIn now, and because I find it most useful for me for building network, because because I handle so many social media networks for the institutes that I work on, I do not have much time to post much on my personal accounts, because constantly I'm posting something on the social media handles that I uh, handle for the organizations. So, but LinkedIn is a platform that I think has been quite useful for me, just to um, understand what's happening in the space of science communication, know the people in the space of science communication, who is doing what, and to collaborate with them. As you know, that there are not many opportunities in science communication, but it has helped me to look at what's happening in the world and whether we can be a part of that world, and we can participate. So I guess my recommendation is LinkedIn is quite a good platform if you want to build network and collaborate. And also, if you're looking for opportunities like job opportunities, if you're looking at enhancing your career progression, then LinkedIn is the place to be, because you'll get to know a lot about what's happening in the space through LinkedIn. I would not say like guidelines, but there are do's and don'ts on social media. I'll just take 2 minutes. So your language has to be respectful. One is that the most important. Then the second is there should not be any copyright issues or intellectual property issues with the content that you are sharing. So you should have the proper permissions to share what you're sharing. Third is, if you're sharing photographs of people, you should have the proper consent that when you are sharing that. Uh, Fourth is, if you're sharing content where your organization is involved, then do you have the consent from the media team of your organization to be sharing that content? So these are kind of considerations that you should be mindful of when putting something out on social media. And always proofread what you're sharing on social media before you are hitting the submit button. Always wait for a minute and again read through, look at the video, look at the content that you're tweeting or resharing. specifically when you're retweeting or resharing anything, we tend to miss the finer details, and they may have some problematic content. So you have to be careful about that, what you're sharing and resharing. Of course, when you are writing your own content and sharing something on your own platform, you will be careful about what you're posting. So yes, so these are some of the things. Anyway, I mean, when we are communicating, we are always careful. When you're writing emails, you're careful what you're sending out. So the same applies to social media.
Thanks.
Last point, the institution or the organization that you work for may have a social media guideline, may have a set of do's and don'ts that they generally share with your researchers. So that is also something that you should be mindful of.